start with the new compilation, Voices Fill My Head. This is the
Right,
second compilation for you.
right.
Uh, Night Run, also, both featuring works from the 90s. What's
Yep.
got you nostalgic?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really my idea. It was Reese Cox. He's the guy that started this record company or record label in Berlin, and he invited me to. He proposed the idea. Um, so we did 16 songs from the 1990s. Yeah,
How'd you feel?
all a cappella. Um, Yeah, he was a big fan of mine since he was in high school. So he started listening to them when he was just that age, and then he approached me. I don't know, about 5 years ago.
So these
And
are new recordings.
well, no, they're old recordings, but we just made the records. I mean,
I see.
just like just hot off the press. I mean, just like last year and
Mm.
this year.
What was your reaction when this was proposed to you? Not everybody likes to look back.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. He was very charismatic and such a huge fan. I was just really kind of taken aback and very flattered because he's like my daughter's age basically, and he was very knowledgeable, and it just kind of blew me away. And so I was really kind of interested in supporting him as well as getting this older work of mine off. And and his enthusiasm was very intoxicating, and so it was just kind of a nice dynamic that way.
Mm. Do you find that younger music lovers are drawn to your music? Have you experienced that before?
Not really. I mean, this was, I mean, not really. No, that's why it was so strange. Yeah,
How's it being received?
it's good. Yeah. Yeah. As of last year with Night Run, it's been great. And then of course the Voices just came out a couple weeks ago, so it's kind of early on, but yeah.
Have you ever been surprised by people's reaction to your work or their interpretations of your work, perhaps?
Um well, one time there's this person that started crying when she was listening to a piece of mine on headphones. It was kind of awkward. Um, and I was sitting right in front of her. It was like a studio visit, and I said, "Here, listen to this piece," and she started crying and was like, "Wow." But oh, I don't know. I mean, um, it's all. I mean, I don't know if I have necessarily surprising if um memories, but you
Do
know.
you recall what the piece was?
Oh, the one that's with the crying one? Yeah, she had a heavy day.
Mm,
Yeah,
wow.
that's on Night Run.
Mm. If you were to describe your work over the years, is there a consistent theme that runs through what you did over the course of these two collections and
Mm.
perhaps even more recently?
Um, hmm, uh, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think I started out um with the idea of wanting to be, or yeah, not really identifying myself as any one thing, but definitely using the idea of storytelling. And so my earlier work that I did before the 1990s was more story based, and but it was always kind of simplistic and repetitive, which I continued to do. But yeah, I was kind of drawn to the idea of telling stories, and then but it wasn't necessarily a linear story. It was more voices that I was hearing in my head or something. It was more of a psychological narratives that or listening to yourself talk. is um, is what a lot of the earlier work was about. Or that's the way it all kind of got started, with me using a tape recorder, recording my voice, experimenting with different phrases, or different types of storytelling, through repetition, or through kind of singing or speaking and then singing, and that kind of thing. And also, it reminded me of, because when I was a child, I would do a lot of singing, but I was such a perfectionist that I would just sing it over and over again. And I remember having that instinct. So that part of that is, I don't know what that is, but that's basically just using a tool that came kind of naturally to me. So that was the voice. And then, I wasn't really set up to be a stage performer necessarily. So I didn't go into that route. So that's probably why I started doing installation art, exhibitions, that kind of thing, sculpture.
I'd planned to ask you about your use of repetition because it is
Mm,
quite striking on these two
yeah,
discs. And, it made me think of oftentimes how I um, will hear a song in my head, or,
right.
if there's a particular passage of the piece that's got my interest, I'll go over it and over it and over it in my
Sure.
head, and I'll play with it, right? Like there's a kind of
Right.
playfulness at work there. And when I hear these early pieces by you, I really identify with that. It's almost a kind of observation of the work as you're performing the work, a playfulness
Right.
with the material.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's compulsive, and incredibly psychological, and it really is about listening to your own words and your own voice, and the repetition kind of going around and around and around. Yeah, it's a little maddening.
But when you take a piece like Hey Joe,
Oh
where
yeah.
clearly you're covering something,
Right.
um, there's still that personal element to it. There's a
Mm,
lot of you. It's like, again,
mhm,
it's like you're playing with the material.
mhm.
Do you rely on improvisation a lot?
Well, when I was first started out, um, referencing like any kind of appropriated lyrics, it all came from memory work of mine, like pulling, again, more, hearing tunes in my head, not necessarily knowing where they came from, and just performing that, with the tape recorder. A lot of the earlier work, I didn't know where it was coming from. I kind of pretty sure I knew where Hey Joe was coming from. But early on, I didn't know exactly. I was just kind of improvising, to just kind of subconsciously performing whatever kind of uh, lyrics would come into my head, and then repeating that, and working on with a keyboard, and to kind of create these rhythm shifts that would overlap each other in a very simplistic way, like row, row, row your boat, kind of, but in a musical way, and but definitely in a way that was hypnotic. I mean, I understood that was the structure, kind of this hypnotic trance, and and a lot of the lyrics were written by myself, just in a kind of a playful way, choosing a sentence out of a book or out of a magazine, or just here and there, different things. Um, so yeah, that's
Mm. You mentioned the installation work a moment ago.
Mm,
I know you've
mhm.
worked in film as well. How has your work as an artist, broadly speaking, evolved since the time you were producing this material?
Oh, how's the installations kind of evolved and stuff?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I've I've really kind of stayed true to this whole idea of using the my voice for the most part, and I've done many sound installations over the years. I've done films using myself or uh, in simple ways, and different types of lighting effects that theatrical lights that are installed for the audience to kind of move around the room. Um,
There is
um,
that opportunity with work like this to place your audience inside the work.
yeah.
And what's the appeal to you in the ability to do that?
Well, again, I think it's just this whole idea of like storytelling and wanting to have, you know, to play like the narrator and to bring people in uh, for this kind of experiential um, work. And also with the repetition, it really creates this, literally creates this kind of ongoing hypnotic memory in everyone's head. So when you leave an installation of mine, it'll still be with you for a while, you know, because
Mm.
that's what repetition does.
It does feel
Um,
like the whole notion of a multisensory presentation of storytelling is
yeah,
still in its fairly early stages.
right,
You
right. It
still
was
think
early
of
on.
storytelling as reading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, early on. Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you too about how technology has changed since
Ah,
you
yeah.
started doing work in this area. And as I was preparing, I looked back on an interview I did with Patrick Cadenas of Front 242, who talked to me about how difficult the electronics were back in
Mm,
the day. And he used the analogy of photography, where basically anyone can take a decent picture now, but the
right.
dexterity that's required to make art has been lost somewhat by
Mm.
the advances in tech. And I think certainly the same can be said in the music realm. Wondering if you have thoughts on that. Has your use of technology changed? Are you conscious of its effect on your work over the years?
Um, yeah. I mean, it hasn't really affected me in a huge way, because I'm still really kind of interested in the narrative, you know. So I do work with sound engineers now, um, and they basically do the technical part.
Mm.
Um, I suppose when I first started out, well, even when I first started out, I was never 100% in command of what was going on in the studio. I have always worked out my own arrangements. I'm good with arranging and rhythm and all that, and I do it the very old fashioned way. I do it like with paper and pen. I'm like really quite insanely old fashioned. And then I have to go to these musicians or these engineers that I work with, and I literally show them drawings. I show them this is how I want it to sound, and I draw it like I literally draw how I want the lyrics to move in space, and just that's just the way I am. And so I'm not really technical at all. I have to I have to work with an engineer that does that for me.
And do the engineers interpret it correctly?
Yeah, well, yeah, they have to, because we do it over and over and over again until we get it right. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Um, one time I have had the opportunity to work with a drummer one time that was just a percussionist who was really gifted in rhythm and whatnot. And so I respected him so much that I did kind of let him show me some things, and it turned out great. And he kind of showed me some new ways, but mostly my material is so minimal anyway that I'm pretty much in charge and I just draw everything out.
Mm. Wonderful. What's next for you?
Well, I don't know exactly. This year's been pretty busy so far. I just did that I did the film installation in February, and these two records just came out. So I think I'm just going to take a little breather here for a minute, and reassess. I'm not sure what I want to do. I'm going to reassess and figure out some new stories and go from there, I think.
Okay. Well, please stay in touch and enjoy your
Oh,
summer.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.